popping in.
Over to your left.
There's one behind the chimney.
Okay, one just flared up.
I got 4 of them.
I got 5.
Major sighting here.
Well, I saw a huge craft just kind of come right over Squaw Peak. That was, you know, it was just breathtaking.
No, I'm off.
Let me see. I could put.
Maybe you could zero it in on there.
Fireball.
2 of them side by side.
Yeah, it does
Maybe
look
that's
like
why
there's
it's so yellow when there's the 2 of them make it.
This is the location. This is Steve right here. He's the one who kind of got it. There's Rhonda. Cool puppy. Let's get back to the saucer.
I don't know if I'm tall enough.
You want to lower it?
I need a chair.
I got another spotting scope somewhere here if somebody wants to look at that too. There's 2 side by side. This is slightly different.
There's another one. Oh, look. 1, 2. There's another
Wait,
one.
where?
Chimney. There's another one, too.
Where?
There's
Oh, look at that.
Please, guys.
There's another one.
No, we're just excited. We're not.
They keep coming.
Wait, I see. Whoa, look at them.
I got that one on video.
There's just 4 of them. Look at there's 3 of them all together.
I got the 3rd one popping in.
Over to your left.
There's one behind the chimney.
Okay, one just flared up.
I got 4 of them.
Another one.
Major sighting here.
No, there's 5.
Oh,
Another one just showed up.
They're multiplying.
whoa.
Maybe somebody's setting up lights.
Did you see that?
No, those are in the sky.
Too. There's one underneath the house, too.
There's one behind that chimney. We
Look, come
need to go to
over here.
Pecos.
I can't see how this works. How does this work?
Holy
Oh, you got it too
shit.
high.
Have you seen that before?
No.
That's weird.
They're lined up in a pattern, man. There's geometry behind this.
I can't even get this. I've never seen it. Look at that.
Man, this is...
What is this? What is
Let's
this?
see. Oh, there's 3 of them all lined up.
No,
4,
there's
Bill.
one
You
over
don't, Bill,
here.
over here
Come
there's
over here.
4.
Look.
Yeah, I see.
Over the top right now. I don't know, but I got it on tape.
They just appeared. They didn't even fly in.
I got them in the scope.
What does it look like, Bill?
They just appeared. What do they look like in your camera?
They look like...
It looks like there's 3 of them in a line.
What do they look like? Is it like this sphere before?
Yeah, they're spears now.
Are they complete circles or cut
Yeah,
off?
they just transformed into circles right now, right as you were talking. Now they're not spears.
Well, see, the way we saw them.
Hey, Stephen Greer missed out, didn't he, Bill?
Have you guys seen this before?
Nope. This isn't first for me.
Anything like it?
I have similar video of this from other people.
See that one?
See,
That
these
one's
are just, you
drifting.
just see little orange things. That's the way we were seeing them. When you see them big,
You see
big,
a gyro.
they're big and they're moving and they have an eye to them.
Do you see an eye? Like a bullseye?
No.
Did you show them the tape already? Did you see the other tape? Yeah. See the eye? That was down.
This just looks like.
Out of focus here.
I don't know if that's a video or
We got major hockey puck activity.
What's that mean?
Hey, why don't you have
That's
audio
this
tape?
term.
Because
I don't have a tape in it.
I think the one on the left may split in half. It's
See, it's drifting
Yeah,
down.
it seemed like the one on the right split there for a minute.
how many is there? I got 4.
if you saw 2, then they just started going.
No.
The other one faded away.
The other one went behind.
Behind a tree.
4 appeared so fast.
I got 3 lined up.
What kind of what mountain?
One, now there's 3.
Can't even move.
Oh no, I forgot to hit the record button.
There's only 3 and they're going down now.
As you hit it,
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but
We need the video camera to put like you have on your hurry.
I need to get a videotape.
Anybody got a still camera, 35 millimeter? Hey, look, the one in the middle's doing something. It's going out of alignment.
yeah, it's going out of alignment.
It's dropping.
It should be changing.
The one on the left, did it drop off?
No, the one in the middle is dropping slightly, and it's ooh, the one on the right's blinking. No, that's because it's going behind a tree now. They're definitely moving. No, one just went behind a tree or something. The one on the right will be gone in a minute as soon as it goes behind something. Yeah, let's go in a minute here. Okay, number 2. We're down to 1. It's winking out or something.
Yeah.
But there was no, like the Clinton day, no.
No. No. I was on a strict diet. No, I'm serious. I'm serious now. That unquestionably it was a UFO, which means unidentified flying object.
Right. Doesn't mean we're being visited.
Well, it's nothing like anything I've ever seen.
And you're an Air Force guy.
Yeah, yeah, and a pilot. Got a lot of hours flying, so it was pretty breathtaking. And I'll never forget. I snuck out to see it, without DPS, which I'm not supposed to be driving my own car and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, but I told Ann what I was doing. I was going to go up to Squaw Peak and see what everybody was, clamoring about. And when I walked in the front door, she looked at me, and I was apparently normally I'm fair complected and pale anyway, right? And she said, "Oh my gosh," she said, "she looked like a ghost. What did you see?" And I said, "Well, I don't know what I saw, but it was really something, and I'm not going to talk about it." And
Wow.
so,
Did it frighten you?
No, I think I was kind of in awe, really,
How big?
Bigger than anything I've ever seen in the sky.
Like an aircraft carrier in the sky?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And it was hard to define because of the light in terms of the size, but it was absolutely silent and had sort of eerie embedded lights, and so that's what I saw. And I wasn't expecting to see anything because I was looking out over at Luke to the west, and then all of a sudden these people in the park area just on the west side of 51, there were a bunch of people there. Everybody said, "Oh, look at that." And we turned around, and this thing was coming from the northwest, traveling to the southeast.
We now know, and it really hit me when we were watching the Diamondbacks in Game 7, and the B-1 flew over the pod.
It wasn't a B-1 bomber.
But that thing all of a sudden out of nowhere appears. And, I said to somebody that night, I said, well, when they do test these, they test them in populated areas. They're new stuff. They test it to see if people detect it. Do you believe it was ours? Do you believe it was something from the U.S. government that they were kind of flying around?
No, it wasn't even close to a B. It was much bigger than a B-1. A B-1 actually isn't that big. I mean,
right.
I mean, if it's at low altitude, it'll appear big, but no, this was totally different.
Something, though, that you think our own government may have been kind of running by a populated area to see what would happen?
Well, they certainly achieved their goal of stirring the pot, if that's what they were doing. But I don't think so. I think this was technologically far advanced. I use the analogy. Can you imagine if you took Christopher Columbus and put him in the cockpit of a Boeing 777? What his reaction would be? He wouldn't understand it. He would be convinced that this is something from another world,
Is that what?
And I really believe that. I believe that. But I've always been open to that. We're not alone in the universe.
I agree with you.
We're going to find that out one way or the other. Even Bill Clinton was talking about that the other day on the national news.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I do believe that we're not alone. I just don't know that we've been visited. But you think maybe that night we were?
I think so, yeah. There have been so many different sort of sightings and inexplicable phenomena that, but the disparity in terms of technological progress would be so vast that we would be, I think, of sort of no consequence to whoever is visiting us, because the technology to get here would be just beyond anything we could imagine.
Did it hover?
No, it was just going in a straight line.
Slow pace?
Yeah, slow pace, yeah. And then, there were all the
Not
sightings.
flares.
There were the sightings of the America West plane coming into Sky Harbor, said he could have landed on it.
It was enormous.
Yeah.
Like an aircraft carrier in the sky? Is that about as close
Yeah,
as
I think that's a fair description.
Oh, my
yeah.
God.
Yeah. It's kind of Interesting.
Maybe it's
This took place in Arizona. An unidentified pilot, according to the press cuttings, flying near an airport in Arizona with his son when he spotted 6 lights in the night sky. So he called from the airplane to air traffic control to say, I'm seeing these lights here. I wasn't expecting any other planes. They're none supposed to be on my landing path. Can you tell me what's going on? They said there are no other planes. He said, I'm seeing 6 bright lights coming towards me. Mystery unresolved.
Except,
Oh?
tail number for that plane was Bonanza 2 Tango Sierra, and I was the pilot. No way. Oliver and I.
Yes, take us back. Doesn't say that in the briefing.
Oliver and I.
Or I should have read to the end.
Oliver and I were flying in. I was flying him to go see his girlfriend, and we were on approach, and I saw 6 lights over the airport in absolute uniform in a V shape, and Oliver said to me, I was just looking at him, and I was coming in. We're maybe a half a mile out, and Oliver said, "Pa, what are those lights?" And I then it kind of like came out of my reverie, and I said, "I don't know what they are." I said, he said, "Are we okay here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna call him," and I reported it. And they said, "We're not painting anything. We don't show anything." I said, "Well, okay, I'm going to declare it's unidentified, it's flying, and it's 6 objects." We landed. I taxied, dropped him off, took off, went back to L.A. Never said a word. He never said a word.
Can you describe to us what you saw that day?
Yeah, we were all outside. Someone actually came and got me because I was still inside. And there were maybe a half a dozen, to my recollection, lights that just hung in the air, didn't move. They definitely were not airplanes. And it just baffled all of us. And they hung on there for several minutes. Like I said, these people saw them when I was in the house. They came and got me, and I still stared outside what I believe would be over 10 minutes.
How big were they?
Well, they were quite in the distance from where I was at, and they appeared pretty large. But it's really hard for me to give a measurement, whether it was the size of a football field or 2 football fields. Because they were so far off in the distance, but they were very large. I couldn't quite describe the shape because all you saw were the big bright lights in the sky.
When it finally got here and we realized this thing was coming right over us, we really started getting antsy. And then when it went directly overhead without a sound, it was like that. It was so big.
You couldn't even hear the wind. It was so quiet. It was just, it just didn't even do anything. It just came through.
It was a giant V, all right? And the right side of the V went over us. The left side was like a couple blocks over it.
You just didn't know what to do. You know, it was just like, my God, how big is this thing? It didn't seem threatening because when it was right overhead and we couldn't hear a sound, it was like you're just awestruck.
He said if he had a tennis ball, he could have hit it. He could have thrown a tennis ball at it. It was that close.
It was very close. He just could have nailed it.
Last light went right over my wife and I, and there was no light on the ground. But I could see up inside that it was almost like a recess, and it had fluorescent like light inside, like a gas light of some kind.
You could see right through the middle of it, but it was like looking through two-way glass, like through a mirage that you see on the highway or something, or just when it's real hot. Right there, you can see through, but there was no light coming back or anything like that. It was just really weird.
As it went over, it went straight like through this V right there, over that guy's house.
It took about 15 minutes to get from when we first saw it all the way till we couldn't saw it.
We just re-experience it every time we tell it. You know, it's like it was just yesterday. You know, we've just never seen anything like it.
I was always a very polite skeptic. I would never tell someone, if they told me they saw something, I would never say, you're a liar or anything like that, because I don't know. But now I don't know what to think, because this is impossible.
We all looked up at the same time and saw this amazing, huge, dark, silent object that appeared to just be right over our heads.
It was awesome. I mean, we were telling ourselves not to blink. It was very close to the ground. It was just like floating over the housetops.
The whole object from front to back, from side to side, it was so big.
I would gauge this object to be several football fields. I mean, like a mile, maybe more than a mile, maybe even 2 miles. It was huge.
The lights did not move relative to each other. Had they been in a formation of separate aircraft, there would have been a slight relative movement, I would have perceived, and they stayed pretty much just locked in position.
In it, and it stayed right on it. And what was extraordinary is that light went off and it came on again over a 20-minute period, and it did not move from that position because it stayed fixed in the scope. I have to tell you, I was really deeply impressed by the display that unfolded. As Jim came up to join me, we really were now together to witness a grand display of several orbs that were variously in a straight line, as if you could draw a ruler or lay a ruler end to end, lights going on and off in the same positions, and then ending up in a triangle as if to communicate a simple geometric based message.
And from her description of what happened, they did seem to move as a unit, and they were able to stop and hover.
Not only was it a very significant mass sighting, many investigators call it the largest sighting ever, lasting the longest amount of time, seen by the largest number of people. Grand scale. But at another level, global media.
When I had the experience of seeing some lights out in the distance, the first thing I did as a, I guess, inborn skeptic myself was just try to run through every possible solution that it could be. I ran my differential diagnosis of anything it could be, and what I realized pretty quickly was nothing fit. Nothing that I could possibly run through. It definitely wasn't flares. It wasn't airplanes. It wasn't streetlights. It wasn't something on the mountain. It wasn't anything that I could think of.
Illumination flare, which would provide light for people on the ground to see what the enemy might be doing.
I do work with flare on a daily basis. They weren't flares. I knew they weren't conventional aircraft. Flares emit smoke, and the illumination from the flare would illuminate the smoke as well, so you would have a trail from the flare leading up.
These lights up here represent aircraft flares. If you notice, they're not in any straight line. They vary in distance between each other. And if you look at the top, you can see the smoke. As the flare falls, it leaves a trail of smoke above it from the burning magnesium in the flare.
Flares are moving relative to each other. They're moving at different speeds. The Phoenix lights are rock steady.
When in between these lights, though, it did seem somewhat denser. It seemed darker, like there was a shape or form going on there that was holding these things together.
It was like looking through water. And if you've ever seen that little wavy motion and so forth, that's what that's like.
It was an orangish amber light. And it was so rich and lustrous, it's almost as if the objects seemed to be made, comprised of the light itself, which is strange. But imagine, if you could, that light would have material property, the physical property. It was almost as if the orb was crafted out of light. They are absolutely perfect in every aspect of every geometrical aspect that could be observed. They were perfectly, uniformly round. They were perfectly, uniformly equidistant.
Video doesn't do it justice. In real life, they're huge. They're amber. There's no flaring. They're like a ball. On the video, they flicker, they're white, they're much smaller. But nonetheless, the formations themselves are compelling.
When it got directly over my head, and I mean, I'm talking dead center here, I was right underneath this thing. And I look up. It was like there was no filament in this thing. They appear to be in a canister. There was light swimming around in this shape or form.
We could not see the whole object from front to back, from side to side. It was so big.
I would gauge this object to be several football fields. I mean, like a mile, maybe more than a mile, maybe even 2 miles. It was huge.
And it just kept going over our heads and going and going and going. And it seemed like we could actually just reach up and touch it. It was so low.
And I realized it was a manifestation that there was intelligence trying to let us know we're here. Now, let's look at this.
I was on the Phoenix City Council. I had no idea anything unusual had taken place until I met a reporter who asked me what had happened and if anybody was investigating. I was on my way into a televised Phoenix City Council meeting, and I told her I would ask about it.
Nobody is doing any investigation on it, and I'd just like to know if anybody has any information from the city and if the city is checking into it. Apparently,
when I asked my fellow council members if anything was being done to investigate the matter, all I got was silence. It was as if I hadn't asked the question at all. They just ignored me and moved on to the next councilman.
People are starting to ask more questions. Thanks. Thank you. Councilman Siebert.
I was just going to give the number.
But this was obviously different, that there were hundreds of witnesses and no call for action. I was stunned. Up until then, Senator McCain and I had a pretty good relationship, but I think his people got a little upset when I kept pushing for action. This whole thing has been a government cover-up, I know firsthand. When I asked the city council for help, I was laughed at. The governor, he made a joke of everything. And Senator McCain gave me the cold shoulder when I asked him for action. A few weeks after the Phoenix Lights incident, a man named Richard Curtis called me at home to say that he had taken some amazing footage on professional equipment of this object capturing actual structure. I asked Mr. Curtis to send a copy to me at my office so I could look at it. I planned to send it to Village Labs so that they could analyze it. Two men dressed in black suits, hats, and sunglasses came to Richard Curtis's door and asked him for the videotape. According to Mr. Curtis and two other witnesses, the men took the tape, got into a black sedan with dark tinted windows, and left.
We're going to have to wake up. We're going to have to become knowledgeable. We're going to have to develop new science because we still don't know all the answers to the questions, who are we, how do we get here, where are we going, and our relationship to the cosmos. We're having trouble with our relationship with each other. We still use violence to settle conflict. And if we're to have a sustainable civilization, those behaviors must go away. And they're not going to go away until we change and find peace within ourselves.